When a teenage girl in a small Minnesota town accuses her father of something sinister, it's up to one detective to figure out the case. What up, y'all? Welcome back to Phantom India Review. I am your host, the Ratty. And today we are talking about 2015's Regression. We see the subgenre often, especially in horror, making religion scary. Whether it's demonic possessions, cult leaders, someone from a religious family overly representing the Lord. And in this movie, it talks about a certain part of religion quite substantially. Detective Bruce Kenner, played by Ethan Hawke, is at work one day when the town drunk comes in, and essentially he is under scrutiny for potentially sexually assaulting his daughter. He claims to have no memory of this whatsoever, and it kind of spirals into a case that's out of control because Detective Kenner is a passionate, hard-working detective, and he wants to fight justice in every way that he can. The 17-year-old daughter goes to stay at the church to live with a priest because she is that terrified of her father. During the investigation, the detective goes to the home of the young girl to interview the family. They find out that her older brother ran away. He couldn't stand being around the father anymore. Her mother passed away, and the grandmother is riddled with alcoholism and old age, and she doesn't really know what's going on. And right out of the gate, implications have arisen because it is a small town, and one of the deputies is a close family friend with the family of the victim, claiming that her father did this. So right away, you feel that close-knit, suffocating, small town bias almost, where it's like, this doesn't usually happen in our town. What? This is a quiet town. What are you talking about? So the detective's back is against the wall initially. And this is where the movie starts to integrate the religious aspect, where you get snips and glimpses, radio plays that it is during the satanic panic of the 80s and 90s. So there are many speculations and fears that cults and satanic groups are implemented throughout the country, and everyone's in hysteria. The detective has a psychiatrist at hand, and essentially the psychiatrist is trying to help the case pretty much through hypnosis. They get the father, who is the perpetrator, and they set him down, and they really try to dig into his mind and have him remember what happened. And to me, this is always an issue. I mean, I'm no psychologist, but I feel like a lot of time in true crimes and movies and cases, when they want to figure out who the bad guy is, like, it's peer pressure. Like, whether or not this person did it or not, they're going to do whatever they can to get the answer that they want. It's almost manipulated in a way. So the psychiatrist, he's pretty much trying to figure out what the dad can remember and what he did to his daughter. And, you know, Ethan Hawke, he's on the fritz, and he's really trying to get the answers. He's very riled up and angry. The psychiatrist is his right-hand man. He's like, calm down, we'll figure this out. And they pretty much put him through a treatment, like a hypnosis treatment of having him remember. And this is where he remembers deeply that inside his house he was taking pictures of his daughter, and someone else was in there pretty much tying her up, torturing her, and taking her out of the house. So this implies that he did not act alone. They go to the church to visit the very scared and fragile daughter, played by Emma Watson, who gives a revering performance, and she's pretty much too scared to talk. She's like, I just want it to be forgotten. I want to stay at the church. I don't want to be around my dad. But the detective really is fighting for her. Like, she's very skittish, scared. He goes to touch her hand, and she wants nothing to do with it. She doesn't trust anyone, which is rightfully so. And the detective just wants to figure out justice, you know. He's learning that this small town is very biased, and there's a dark secret within it that he just quite can't figure out. And this is where the detective starts growing impatient to an extent, because he just wants to figure out and help this girl. He's kind of snapping at the dad. He's snapping at his co-workers, at the sheriff, at his partners, because he doesn't think people are taking this case as seriously as they should, and it's very frustrating. And not even halfway into this movie, we find out the revelation that when the dad was under hypnosis and he said he remembered seeing someone in that room, and then interviewing the girl to see if she remembered who it was, she picks out of a lineup of suspects on a picture that it was in fact the deputy that is working with the detective. And this kind of flips the case on its head, because now you have someone internally working for the police doing this suspect stuff, and it makes Detective Kenner that much more untrusting of his surroundings than he already was. So they arrest this detective, and now the detective knows there's more people involved. After further talking to Emma Watson's character again, he finds out that this is based on a satanic ritual, and she gets into brutal detail of what they did to her. They burned her, tortured her, and it's coming to light that there is a satanic group in this town that is trying to pretty much harvest on young innocent people. They want to summon the devil. As I said earlier, the brother of this family, he ran away. So Detective Kenner and the psychiatrist track him down in a big city, and they talk to him, and they do this therapy treatment on him that they did on the dad, where they're trying to force his memories back into his head, and he's very reluctant at first, but the more they convince him, the more they find out that he was held down, shrouded by a group of hooded figures that he depicted to be witches. And it starts to unfold that for many years in this small town, some crazy stuff was happening, whether it be witchcraft, demonic possession, Satanism, all this crazy stuff. And as the movie unfolds, Emma Watson's character begins to trust the detective, and they become very close, and she starts to realize, hey, maybe he is the one guy that can help me. Maybe not everyone is all that bad. But there are some issues at hand, because she begins to develop more of a relationship with him than he desires. There's one scene where they're at the cemetery talking about her mother that passed away, and she leans in and kisses him, and this sends him to panic, and the priest witnesses it. From out of context, sees her lean over and kiss him, and this adds an issue into the investigation already, so he kind of storms off. A little bit late that the police department and the cops, they're starting to pick up what the detective was putting down, and they're starting to get scared. They're making jokes, they're intimidated, they're realizing that Satanism is on the rise, and everyone is just feeling very uncomfortable, especially on the scene where the grandmother of the victim, Emma Watson, starts to go a little bit stir crazy at home and jumps out the window to try to kill herself. The detective begins to spiral into uncertainty and paranoia, where he begins to trust no one. He's starting to snap at his closest friends. He's starting to snap at detectives, at the psychiatrist. He feels like he's letting this case get to him too much. It's pretty much eating away at him. One part comes up that really hit a home run for me, because it's what I was thinking initially when I started watching it, was the implication of this therapy treatment. The detective goes to his good friend, the psychiatrist, and pretty much says, throughout this collective hysteria in your therapy, you're kind of designing manipulated outcomes, where you're having people remember what they think they're remembering, and it's implicating a situation that might not have happened, because when you have police screaming down your throat, psychiatrists telling you what to say, and everyone around you telling you did what you did, because the dad doesn't remember harming his daughter. He's like, I know I did it, but for some reason my brain is not allowing me to remember this. Through this therapy and regression, Ethan Hawke starts to question. He's like, are we manipulating him to remember the things that that didn't really happen? Are we forcing him to remember fake created notions? And it forces someone to remember how something played out in a way that it didn't. The deputy who was accused of being a part of this Satanist group is released, and this is where the movie kind of picks up, and Detective Kenner is on the fritz, and he's just trying to do everything he can to help this girl. When everything falls into place and you figure out what really happened, the deputy and another cop break into Kenner's house, and they pretty much want to beat him up for getting the deputy in trouble. How dare you get me in trouble for a satanic ritual group? And this is where we find out, to a bittersweet note, because it kind of drops the climax. I'm kind of glad the movie didn't go where I expected, because sometimes in movies I expected, the cult to kidnap him, some shady stuff to happen, some scary stuff, which does happen in a lot of dreamlike sequences, and then he wakes up terrified. But you figured that this movie was going to end in more of a cliche way, where, he gets grasped by the clutches of the satanic cult and has to save the girl. But no, it kind of falls flat, where after getting burglarized by the two cops, they reveal the truth. And this is where the detective goes back to the church to confront Emma, and he writes on the paper, and he's like, I can't believe they did this to you. And her crying and sobbing, he's like, they tried to put a baby into you. And then she tears up and shakes her head yes. And he throws the paper on the table, and it reveals there was nothing written down. And that proved the point that she was starting to believe what everyone was telling her. But in her case, it was different and malicious, because she was the one that accused everyone of this, and that she made it up all along. They knew she never liked her father. They got glimpses and hints that she never liked her father, and when her mother passed away, she was devastated. We knew her brother didn't like her father. We knew that even though this father has been going to church for years and was trying to redeem himself, his drunk past and bad parenting caught up with him, which is unfair. Ethan Hawke's character looks at Emma Watson's character, and he's like, you just played us. He's like, I vouched for you. I spent all this time trying to help you when you just lied through your teeth trying to get people in trouble. With a cold-hearted look, she's like, no one's gonna believe you, bro. And then that's where you're hit with that stalemate of, wow, you just watch a whole movie believing, like you too were believing in the Satanism. They gave you hints and dread and fear that Satanism was around, all for a little girl who cried wolf maliciously. The Ethan Hawke goes to talk to the dad that had been in jail this whole time because his daughter said what she said about him, and we find out that his love was unbreakable. He's like, I was a bad parent, I pushed her away. And he pretty much agrees to go to jail. He's like, I'll go to jail for the charges, so maybe one day she'll hate me a little bit less. And it was a very bittersweet and humbling ending. And then you get the little text screen pretty much providing a history on the satanic panic and how all these small towns have these occurrences of people claiming that there was Satan in their town or cults in their town, and it pretty much says, you're wrong. And like, it seemed very pro-Satanism to me, which, take it one way or the other, I don't know, but it pretty much, this movie was weird because like all this happened, and then you watch it and you're like, that's crazy that a girl claimed all these horrendous acts on her, blamed the Satanism church, and it wasn't really them. So like, are you defending the Satanism church, like the satanic church, or is what it is and you're just telling the story? It seemed like you were advocating a little bit too heavy, my guy. But no. But all in all, it was a pretty solid movie. I mean, I recommend it. I love the cinematography and the dark, dreary vibe of the small town. It had some great shots. It was very atmospheric. It was very set upon in a certain way where it reminded you of just a creepy small town. Ethan Hawke's performance was stellar, and it was just a fun and creepy movie. But yeah, that was the review, y'all. So I hope you subscribe. Give a fucking thumber. Hit that little ding-ling button harassing you, telling you, hey, it's me, I'm here. I'm gonna say it one time for the one time and two time for the O's. Give me a hell yeah for horror. YouTube thinks you're gonna like that video right there. I don't know what video it is.